Good morning, I'm Matthew Newman, Chief Correspondent at MLEX. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to listen today. And I also would like to thank the four speakers for being part of this discussion. Today, we will discuss the evolution of retail. How is the COVID-19 crisis shaping the future of retail? I'll give you a brief overview of the issue and then introduce the speakers. Each speaker will give brief introductory remarks, and then I will launch into the questions. How have retailers responded to COVID? Some online retailers have benefited from the pandemic as lockdowns forced customers to shift spending online. But many brick-and-mortar retailers have struggled during the crisis and have been forced to lay off thousands of workers. Big names have been hurt deeply, including Marks & Spencer and Debenhams in the UK, and in the US, clothing store chain J. Crew and department stores from JCPenney and Neiman Marcus to Lord & Taylor, the US's oldest department store, have all filed for bankruptcy this year. But it's not just large retailers that have been devastated. A survey by McKinsey in August found that about 70% of SMEs said their revenues had declined as a result of the pandemic, with severe knock-on effects. 1 in 5 was concerned they might default on loans and have to lay off employees, while 28% feared they would have to cancel growth projects. In sum, more than half felt their businesses may not survive longer than 12 months. At the same time, the crisis has helped accelerate change in the retail industry. Some traders have been creative and used technology to respond to the pandemic. That means using QR codes to allow customers to scan items and get more information and get directed to a website that can provide 3D images that can be manipulated and spun around. It could also mean using live streaming to speak directly with consumers, or using augmented reality to show consumers their products. Small retailers say they need support for setting up digital processes, including communication, marketing, and supply chain management, or for generally shifting work towards an online environment and providing services and products online. Today, we will discuss the outlook for the retail industry, both on and offline. Has the digital transformation of the sector and the innovation associated with such a shift been sped up or stunted because of the crisis? How is innovation driving the reinvention of business, and what impact will this have on policymaking? With me to discuss these issues are Cynthia Sanfilippo, Vice President for Public Affairs at L'Oréal, Cristina Beltramo, she's co-founder of Acidium Ritual Pastry, which sells traditional pastry and chocolate from Piedmont, Italy, Sébastien Badeau, Managing Director of France Benelux Alibaba Group, Damir Hajduk, and he is head of unit responsible for retail and online services at the European Commission. I would like to invite each of you to give brief introductory remarks, starting with Cynthia, then Christina, Sebastian, and finally Damir. Cynthia, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So hello everybody, very happy to be there, for this very important and interesting session. So I work for L'Oréal, the cosmetics leader and global leader actually. The group is 100 years old, and from the beginning, the group has had a model where, we work with retail in a very close and strong partnership for the distribution of our products. When retailers are doing fine, we are doing fine, and we have to do everything that is possible so that our offer to the end consumer, through the retail partnership, is the most appropriate and the most personalized. L'Oréal has, of course, embraced the digital transformation quite early on, because we started in 2010. Which gave us actually kind of a strong resilience to the COVID crisis, and I will come to how this has impacted, us. When we hit the month of March at L'Oréal, of course, we had the experience of the crisis in China, because we are globally present everywhere. So we already had experienced some lockdowns, some closing of distribution channels for us. And when this comes to Europe, which is the the home of the group, and still a significant part of our business, we from one day to another, we have half of our distribution channels that close. What we then witness is the importance of e-commerce and the digitalization of the retail partners to be able to sustain still an offer that is relevant to the consumers for products that they need. We just to illustrate, so we are mostly present in grocery retail, which remains open with some goods that are qualified as essential when it comes to personal care. We are, of course, through pharmacies, but then we see the closing from one day to another of hairdressers who have been small entities and long-standing partners of the company. And the luxury, what we call the luxury distribution channels, basically perfumeries, whether big chains or small chains. And then, of course, I'm not even going to mention travel retail, which has literally stopped, from one day to another. So this COVID-19 crisis has been a very strong accelerator of trends. It's been a hard hit for many, but it's been also an accelerator of trends. In terms of what we did, and I think this is an interesting part in the debate on helping the retail adapt in the future. As part of our solidarity plan, we had a very specific attention to the small entities, and especially the hairdressers, which in general are 1 or 2 people. Those people are extremely vulnerable in the ecosystem. The closing for 1, 2, or even 3 months, could mean just a complete stop of their activity in the long run. So we actually, in addition to some measures in terms of advance payments, etc., or some cash liquidities, we definitely had them digitalize so that they could restart activity from the first day of what we call the deconfinement measures. With some digital training, some online reservation tools for people who wanted to have the service, when they wanted, and that's really helped them, restart activity very quickly. In terms of acceleration of trends, I mean, we have seen a tremendous shift in consumer shopping habits. They literally moved to e-commerce, and e-commerce was doing fine, and this is great because it could ensure some economic activity in the region. We have seen new engagement models as well, so we had to be a little bit more creative. I mean, you just touched on it in the introduction to the panel, but yes, the use of augmented reality to try on products, some more content in the dialogue we have with consumers, some new platforms, some live streaming, etc. We've been working very hard on that. And of course, in terms of retail, there was a massive uptake of e-commerce, both direct to consumer, but also from our retail partners. We grew at plus 61% just on e-com, and today e-commerce represents 25% of the sales of our group, which is a big step. But we see that we will have to rethink even more the consumer journey to be always there, present with the best product, the best service, matching their needs, and that will be a great combination of offline and online experience. We also need to reinvent online an experience that people, when it comes to beauty products, are looking in stores, such as the feel and touch that is very dear to the cosmetic product. It's also helping them, having some more digital tools to be able to sustain the model in the future. So I think, bearing in mind the 5 minutes, I will keep it there, and I'll be very happy to answer questions. The master word is focus on the consumer. The consumer is changing, so we are changing, we are adapting, and we are not adapting alone. We are adapting in partnership with our retail partners, whether big actors who have, some advance, but also with a very specific attention to the small ones who are a big part of our ecosystems, and which, it is our duty to help to survive in this future. Thank you.
Excellent. The customer is right, the digital customer as well. So thank you very much. Christina, can you take us a little bit further to the world of the small company and how they're doing?
Sure. So hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here, and I am really happy also to introduce Assedium, which is a very small company. We were born actually last year in November, so we are today 1 year old. I'm the co-founder for Assedium, and we are specialized in chocolate and pastry from Piedmont. And more specifically, let's say that our mission is to reveal the authentic Piedmont to a more international environment, so also outside Italy and not in Italy only. As I said, we started last year, and our main distribution channel today is the digital platforms and our online store, which actually makes us a little bit different respect other, let's say, competitors. And for this, actually, COVID for us was not such a big disruptor, as we were able to maintain our main channel during the pandemic disruption. But of course, today our main challenge is to build, let's say, a more traditional channel, as, for example, our retail partner are, let's say, suffered a very strong period in the last pandemic disruption, also today before Christmas in Italy, where we, let's say, are facing the second wave of COVID. So today we are really focused on working with a more traditional partner for the traditional channel. And what we are doing is to constantly have with them a very open dialogue in order also to hear their new needs that have born with this pandemic, and specifically also produce ad hoc packaging, ad hoc formats, also to respect their needs in terms of price points and also of their customer needs. As I was saying, of course, it's not only online store, the main channel we have, but we are also operating with the major online platforms. And this, of course, is a huge opportunity for small companies like ours, but somehow can also be a threat. I mean that, of course, there is a big opportunity in having such a big number of visitors from these platforms, but in this way it's also easier to do comparison with very big brands. And I think personally that, of course, we are a small company, we are a niche company, and the way we compete, for example, in these platforms is based on the fact that our consumers are, let's say, different from other consumers that are looking maybe for big brands. So we are looking for curious, for I would say also yes, curious international customers that are looking for something that it's very difficult to find in other places. And the way we stay in these platforms is, first, we try to leverage at best the quality of the pictures we have and the description we can use in order to dialogue completely with our target customers. And secondly, of course, we choose strategically the platforms on which we want to be present, because, of course, this is also a strategic decision. There are some platforms that are interesting for us and specifically for our consumers. Other platforms that maybe do not serve our specific consumers. Let's say that another big challenge that today we have is the fact that yes, we are online, we are a new company, but the truth is that we have an historical laboratory and an historical pastry shop that is in Cuneo, our hometown. But of course, we really need to chirurgically be aware of the fact that we don't want to compete directly with the traditional shops in general, and this traditional shop, of course. And what we did is that actually our specific mission is to communicate and serve more international customers, and this is why we, of course, decided to use a more online channel. And secondly, we also created a new brand to serve this channel, and we use a very completely different communication language. So it's a more international communication language. It's a more sophisticated and also more fresher and newer. Of course, the way the geographical target is different. So even though we are present in our hometown, we push more, let's say, on other Italian regions where we do serve also traditional shops, and of course other European countries. There is, of course, a huge, let's say, obstacle in being so much focused on online stores and online presence in general, which is the fact that selling food, it's difficult to transmit also some sensorial qualities and to make consumers perceive the quality of the products you sell. So what I always say is that today there are many opportunities actually to feel closer with the customers. Some examples are, for example, blogs, socials, magazines. So actually there are new ways to communicate, and I think that what it's really important is to select these touch points that can be interesting for your target and then preside them in the correct way. So just to give you some examples, we do have our own blog magazine where, for example, we reveal all the behind the scenes of the production. We do reveal the recipes of the products that we sell. We use, for example, our Instagram stories to show what is happening in the laboratories with very sensorial images. I think the video in this sense is a very good tool to be used for transmitting sensorial qualities. And finally, for example, we collaborate with influencers to gain trust with our consumer base and with a potential new consumer base, of course. So today, of course, there are many ways to leverage the perception of the products and to also to operate only online, perceiving the product. Of course, what it's really important is to select the correct tool. So this is the main challenge today, I would say, for us.
Wow, Christina, that's fascinating. I really look forward to going more into depth about talking about these sensorial qualities, the new language that you're using to communicate. We're going to move on to Sébastien Badeau of Alibaba. So, Sébastien, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So thanks, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and part of this very interesting conversation. The future of retail is something that we at Alibaba are trying to craft pretty much every day, and I've been trying to do so for the past 20 years. And clearly what's happened in the past 8 months, like a lot longer, has been really interesting. For us as a company, for me as an employee being in Europe, which I think is very different from what's happening in China. We just had a big meeting with all Chinese colleagues last week, and really everything is back to normal there when things seem to be going worse and worse here. So it's interesting to see that continuity between the two. But I think everybody talks about this situation as being an accelerator. And clearly it has been an accelerator, and we saw it in a multitude of ways. I think it was an acceleration, obviously, of digitalization, and I'll get back to that. And this is something that we are trying to help companies work through, and we help millions of businesses across the world, a lot in China, and of all sizes. And it's really always been in the DNA of Alibaba to try to help businesses, and especially small businesses, thrive online. From really, this was what was built on by Jack Ma 20 years ago. But the other acceleration that we've seen is people doing business with China. And this was why we opened offices outside of China 5 years ago, to really help smaller businesses and larger ones as well take advantage of this amazing opportunity that the China market represents. And there's 800 million consumers on our platforms, and they're very thirsty for products that are coming from Europe and from the West as a whole, because they see them as being really high quality and love the branding. So I'm sure they'll be very interested in trying chocolates from Piedmont. So we should definitely talk about this, because there might be an opportunity there. But we have about 1,700 brands that are present on the platform today from France. So 1,700 from France is a lot, and some are from L'Oreal. Like most of the L'Oreal brands are present on Tmall. But there's also like smaller brands, like we launched last week Inès de la Fressange, who's an icon model and also now has her own brand. She used to be for Chanel, and she has now her own brand, and it's a small house, and they just launched China. We also launched Ami, which is another small fashion brand. Those are SPs, and they are able to access the Chinese market. So what we've seen is that like there's been an acceleration. A lot of people that we have been in touch with, talking to, but maybe China was maybe number 4, number 5 in their priority list. When COVID hit back in March, very quickly China became maybe number 1 or number 2, because a lot of the other projects couldn't be done because they're local projects. So we saw acceleration there. So companies that we were talking to that were maybe not fully ready made themselves ready, or saw that this was really an opportunity, and they were right to think so, because really the Chinese market, in terms of when you look at the last GDP numbers, the only economy that's growing really in the world right now is China. And the second part that we saw is companies are already there. So people that we had been working with for a little while also saw the opportunity, like driving some new marketing tools, like launching new campaigns, launching new products as well, and there was an acceleration there as well. So that was really interesting to see this acceleration on the China part. The second part is tendencies that we're seeing before, trends that we're seeing before. A really big one is around live streaming. So again, something that any brand could be using, and some of the L'Oreal brands are using them. And again, if we did something when you were talking about Instagram stories, we could do live stream to the Chinese consumers, and that has caught fire. It's an incredibly strong trend. It was already a trend before quarantine, and it really accelerated. And so now that China is out of quarantine, you can see that these trends are there to stay. It's not something that was just a flash in the pan for the 2 or 3 months that people were stuck in their home, even after it's still happening. So I have a good example of this is a company in China, cosmetics company, that actually has their own store, and they have something like 600 stores they have 270 stores in China. And so when the stores closed, basically their business, they were doing 10% of their business online and 90% through the stores. And when the stores closed, basically they lost 90% of their business. They moved to a live stream model. They took 1,600 of their salespeople, sent them the products at home so that they could go online, talk about the products, say why they like this one, why they like launch, do some tutorials on how to put them on your face, and they recovered 7% of their business within the first month. And now that they reopened the store, 90% of the business that they were doing is now online. So that's really powerful. And then the last piece that I wanted to mention was around what we call new retail. So new retail is really what we believe that Alibaba is going to be the future of retail, and it's essentially a mix between online and offline. So some what has been talked about earlier, and I think what's really important there is to see that we at Alibaba, even though we're an online company, we're a marketplace, and what we do is really create a technology platform to link consumers and brands, or consumers and companies. We firmly believe that the importance of physical retail is also fully there. We made massive investments in physical retail as well. And so what we believe in and what we see also there is this idea that like we need to reinvent and reinvent that retail. We can talk about that a little bit later. But when I see what's happening in Europe right now is, for example, something that people didn't use 6 months ago was QR codes, where QR codes are everywhere in China. And I think that like we all scanned restaurant menus on QR codes, and now this crisis has accelerated the consumer usage of that technology, which now means that the technology which existed before can now be integrated in a very smart way in retail. We launched a month ago a retail space in Paris for the first time, where we integrated a lot of the technology into the space. So there was you could take your phone and scan any product that was in the store, and automatically you would get a product page that gives you all the product details and the price and consumer comments, etc. And people loved how fun it was to do that, and it was new. But also, like, it's much more, I was at a store a few days after and trying to find the price of a product on a shirt, and it took me like 5 minutes to find the tag, which was hidden somewhere in the sleeve. All of these things, and when we talk about fluidification of retail, it's all about making things simpler for the consumer and making sure that we can use technology as an enabler to just make things funner, because I think re-enchanting retail is about making it funner for people to really have an experience in a store, and then just a much more seamless than what it is today. And right now retail is still not seamless, even though technology can enable it to be a lot more so. So these are like the three kind of trends that we're seeing in the new retail.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're all for making retail more fun, I think. We're going to wind up the introductory comments with Damir from getting the institutional view from the European Commission. Damir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Matthew. I would like to talk first about the impact of COVID-19 crisis on retail, and then also explain what the Commission is doing to help the retail ecosystem recover. Now, when the COVID-19 started, as you are all aware, the lockdown of the non-grocery stores basically meant that there was no business for stores that did not have their online presence, which in particular was important for SMEs that yet did not embrace the digital technology, and this is something we have to solve this issue going forward. As let's see how long will this crisis go on? It's not over yet, so it's still too early to say how this will play out. Now, first, the European Commission brought a program that is basically a loan that the European Commission is going to take at the international financial markets to help the European economy recover, but also to become green and digital. And the European economy is now perceived as the combination of ecosystems. And retail is one of the biggest ecosystems in European economy. Retail does 5% of the value added. It's a big employer. The turnover, retail plus the relevant wholesale part make up to 5.2 trillion euros. And retail, of course, is an employer of women, and very frequently it is the first job employer for young people. So that's very important. Retail has a role in our society as one of the social pillars, and it has a significant role, in particular in rural areas, not just in big towns, but also in smaller cities and villages. So retail is very important. Now, retail is also connected to the other ecosystems like agri-food ecosystems, also textile and social economy and proximity. So that makes him even more important. Now, the retailers, the big retailers and the small retailers, they had a big problem in the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, because the borders closed, the trucks delivering perishable goods, they could not pass. then the drivers had to remain in quarantine. Workers working across the borders in some of the retail shops, they could not cross borders because the borders shut down, and the Commission played an important role in opening the borders, and you may have heard the guidelines and the green lanes that then were installed at the borders for retail trucks to pass that have no particular reason to stop, so that the logistics could function. What happened also is this stockpiling that some of the consumers went for, and that made the life of retailers more difficult. Operational costs in that particular time they went up, and it wasn't easy. So it wasn't easy for the groceries, but it was even worse for the non-grocery businesses. Grocery shops, they make up to 45% of the total turnover of retail ecosystem. What also is happening after this initial shock, and when the shops opened, we saw that the consumer confidence is quite low. So, for example, in Germany in May, when the shops closed and in shopping streets, there was only 40 to 45% of the footfall in relation to the previous year at the same month. So that means that this recovery is going to take some time, and it will need a lot of investment in digital, in green, but also it will have to bring this consumer confidence back, because some products categories are more hit than others. Especially, I'm talking about the luxury goods, where people don't opt to buy something they don't really need if they're not feeling secure that their financial resources are going to be stable in the long-term period. So this is something that can be also put as one of the key issues. Now, this evolution of retail, I totally agree. This COVID-19 crisis accelerated this evolution of retail towards digital, and now European Union is trying to bring funds that can help, in particular, smaller retailers to embrace these new opportunities. I wouldn't call them challenges. It's much better to call them opportunities. So for the first 5 minutes, that would be it. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I think we've got a nice overview of all the issues. We're going to try to get a little bit more precise now and drill into some of the comments we heard into the introductory remarks. I'm going to start out with Cynthia, who made some interesting comments about the new ways of doing business and how the pandemic has changed things. Now, Cynthia mentioned things like streaming to engage more with customers. And I just wanted to have you describe a little bit more how the L'Oréal brands are engaging with customers differently because of the COVID crisis.
Yeah, right. So, you know, L'Oréal is 36 brands, and all of them have a very personalized and privileged dialogue with, with our consumers. So what we have seen in the COVID, let's say in the close down, I don't know how to call it, because we are heading towards the second stage now. You know, during those lockdown period, is that people were very eager to engage online, including people who are usually not engaging online. The elder generation. So we really had to provide more content there. We had some partnerships with some retailers about the use of providing the use of augmented reality tools. I mean, we have invested in something that is called Modiface. Modiface is a virtual makeup try-on tool. We have the same declination, for hair coloration, etc. So people were playing a little bit with this. People did a lot of research on beauty. Beauty and digital, as I briefly mentioned, are a great match. You would be amazed to know the number of beauty searches on the web. it's one of the first items that people are looking for. And if you go to some major online marketplaces or platforms, it's even the #1 search. So we had to follow all that. We have also increased and moved, our marketing online from 50% to 70, because that's where people were basically, and that was it. And then we had to, to reorient, as Christina said, some of more content, on platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, etc. Because that's where people were. That was the way to interact with the consumers. But definitely the virtual try-ons and the use of tech. So it's really, there was the use of tech tools such as augmented reality for us, and that we will plan to deploy more massively now in the soon to come post-COVID period, we hope. And then the new engagement models in parallel.
I think I could use some virtual foundation right about now.
We had a big hit here, hair coloration, the really hair color. I mean, the makeup business obviously went from very high to a crash. But hair coloration was a good thing.
Yeah, blue hair, pink hair. So it sounds like you are adapting quite quickly and shifting your marketing more and more online and shifting to social media. This is something that Christina mentioned a lot, was the shift towards social media. I would like to hear a little bit more from Christina, because she mentioned working on with various platforms. So you mentioned Instagram. What exactly does this mean when you talk about this different communication language? Are you actually referring to your the way you engage with customers that's different, or is it, when you say the language, is it you're just actually using a different way of speaking, a different kind of vocabulary that's completely different? What do you mean by that?
I think it's definitely both. So, and not only this actually. So first of all, definitely it's a channel mean. So if you're using a different channel mean, of course, you have to adapt to it, but also it's in terms of word and also visual. So what we are doing differently is that we try to present our products, let's say, and we are trying to associate more to other industries. So what I always say is that we refer and compare a lot to the beauty industry. For example, with the packaging that we use for our pralines somehow is very similar to the one that usually you can find for creams, for beauty creams actually. So and also the way we really represent our products. So the way we position our praline is not maybe in a normal, let's say, on a normal table, but maybe it's between other objects that maybe a person can use in another environment. So, for example, more referring again to the beauty and to the design industry. And this is definitely important, but this is, let's say, the B2C communication level. Of course, we are trying to develop a B2B communication level, which is quite difficult for us, because we are starting now in this very difficult period. We are in our business development phase, and our, let's say, plan was to do and to participate to as many physical international fair as possible. Of course, due to COVID, this was not possible. So we had to find also a way to participate to digital fair, which is also something completely new for us. And of course, the language there must be adapted. So you don't have, of course, the physical presence of the buyer, but somehow you have to interact with them in a more digital way. And of course, on one side, some platforms helped us a lot. Alibaba, of course, definitely is one of them. But on the other side, there are so many other international fairs that tried to adapt to a new digital way of doing, let's say, their business. And every time we had to adapt to, let's say, the new environment that they created for us. So, for example, augmented reality, or other digital, let's say, way of doing so.
Deeper about how Alibaba is actually helping retailers. If you can be a bit more precise, is this more training? Do you help them with augmented reality, or what exactly does Alibaba do?
So I think what we do mostly with companies in Europe is to provide them with access to a team that's locally present, even though nowadays locally doesn't mean as much as it used to, but at least people who speak the language and understand the markets. And to really be a direct link to the Chinese consumer, because I think if you're a very large company, you already have offices there, you know exactly how to navigate. But if you're a small company and you want to do cross-border business, you have never been in China, you don't necessarily have people in your team that speak the language, you don't understand how to market, you don't understand how to do customer service. So we've actually created from the get-go an ecosystem of partners, which are third parties, but which we vet in a quarterly basis to make sure that their service level is adequate. And what we do is we act pretty much in the same way that we do in the marketplace as a facilitator, creating the link between the brands and that third party, which then will allow brands to be able to take care of the logistics piece, to take care of the marketing piece, take care of the customer service piece. So really, it's about showing opportunities, be an echo chamber as to what's happening on the consumer side in China, because clearly it's a market that's like no other in terms of the speed at which it evolves. It's totally driven by Generation Z, by the 18 to 30-year-olds, and even 30 is a bit old. And I think that the idea is to really help brands take advantage of the opportunities by using technology, by using tools, but also sometimes it's just by having the right product at the right moment. And that's what we do as well, right? Like try to help people understand why this product is going to do well in China versus this other that might not. So a lot of times, like, brands come to us with a product offering and we're saying, this isn't the right thing right now for China, push this product instead. So it's very much like a consulting way, and then the brands at the end ultimately will make the decision, because it's a marketplace, so they decide what they push. But what we can do is enable them and give them the tools, technology tools, but also like market understanding tools.
Interface between the brands and the actual market in China. That I think is very important. We do have some questions coming in, and the first one is from a professor in Berlin, and this is for Christina. And he's asking about, as a small manufacturer of goods, are you at all involved in the interaction with small stores as local distributors, or more in the interaction with the end consumers? And what do you do to support small local stores? You'd like to know.
Well, very good question. Yes, of course, we are definitely so much involved with the small distributors and local stores. As I was saying, we are in our business development phase, so we have a very close and open dialogue with all of them that we know one by one. So first of all, the open dialogue actually is the very first thing that we do, because it's really important to understand what they really need in order to, let's say, face this difficult period. And during this open dialogue, actually what we heard is that, for example, some of our products that are very good for our online channel are definitely not, let's say, perfect for their small local businesses. So what we did is to adapt some of our products to their necessities in terms of packaging, in terms of format, and also in terms of price points. And this is the very first thing. The second thing that we try to do is to give them as much as possible visibility. So we are not jealous of our, let's say, of the traffic that we might have on our website. We are really happy if potential consumers are visiting us in other environments. So we try to do to them as much as visibility on our social platforms, and the communication as well that we use, of course, as a manufacturer, we try to communicate as much as possible with our end consumer. But when we are asked where, for example, they can find our products, of course, we push them on our online store as well as on their local stores. So definitely, it's visibility and open dialogue, and of course availability to respond to their specific needs.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd just like to bring in Damir into the conversation, because he mentioned in his opening remarks about funding that's available, making retailers more resistant to the economic downturn. And I was just wondering if you could be a little bit more precise, what kind of programs or policies are really available to encourage digitization and greening of retail.
Yes. Well, first of all, I would like to emphasize the communication of European Commission from 2018 that has a name, European Retail Fit for 21st Century. Now, what this communication basically tackles is removal of the restrictions in some member states to retail. Retail is a highly regulated sector, and we have two types of restrictions in the member states. One type is the restrictions to the retail establishment. So you cannot open a shop if you're selling certain products like clothes or shoes outside of city center. Then you have to have some permits, and then you have their authorization schemes, sometimes that involve also competitors. So on the operational side, there are restrictions to shop opening hours, there is a retail specific tax, there are restrictions to sell goods below their cost. So we're fighting this with this tool that we have developed. I think somebody is not muted. That is called Retail Restrictiveness Indicator. And this indicator basically measures how restrictive is retail in certain member states, and we encourage these member states to remove those restrictions, because there is a model that proves that a less restrictive retail ecosystem provides for better productivity and also lower prices, which are also to the consumer's benefit. So we kind of encourage competition there. Now, the Next Generation EU program that identified these ecosystems that I talked about earlier provided fast liquidity solution to a problem of shops that were closed, but more importantly, will provide for this transition to happen, both on the smaller shops, but also on the a bit larger ones. Now, there are components in this program that retailers can apply to in respect to member states' proposals for the recovery, greening, and digital. And we have identified several of them as most important. The first one, I think, is energy. So this, on one hand, renovation wave will also, I hope, in some member states, involve the commercial buildings as well. We are looking at the zero emissions retail stores that use renewable energy, that have electrical chargers in their parking lots. So retail stores are helping this transition to green in so many ways. they are reducing the waste. The waste. Well, they reduce the waste, food, especially food waste. But also they are acting as recycle centers for some products. So this is one thing. The other thing is transportation. So the component mobility is also important for retail, because retail moves a lot. Of course, the goods, not just trucks, but also inner cities. There are, of course, plans to introduce more electric vans and cars and bicycles for deliveries that are happening in inner cities. What also is important is upskilling and reskilling. So the automation and some other trends in technology, technology-wise, will have an impact on the employees in retail. So there is a program of reskilling of retail that is, as I said, very hit by the COVID crisis, and we encourage also retailers to apply for these funds within the EU Resilience and Recovery Facility to get this funding and to make retail more resilient. There are numerous initiatives. Not all member states are equally equipped and respond in an equal, timely fashion. So the proposals from member states started to come in from the 15th of October, and the deadline for these proposals to be delivered is the 30th of April next year. So it's going to take a while for the funds to come in. There's still some legislative process that is planned for this to make to be possible, but I think retail needs investment, and there is money made available. So now it's up to member states to recognize retail as an important sector and to help him transform to be more resilient and green and digital.
Excellent. Some really good programs are available for retailers. It seems just need to get the message out and have the retailers actually apply for them. We're getting lots of good questions, so thank you very much for that. People in the audience are sending in some excellent questions. First question is going to Sebastien, and it's about Alibaba's plans and whether or not Alibaba intends to open more stores in Europe. Sebastien.
So that's a great question. We have a couple of stores right now that are open in Spain, one in Barcelona, one in Madrid for our AliExpress platform, which is the only platform that's really present in Europe. We opened one, as I was mentioning earlier, in Paris, but that was a pop-up store for just a couple of days. We're planning on doing something also for 11/11, but considering the current situation, it may look like we may need to postpone that to a later date. We'll know more tonight at 8 p.m. But overall, I think our view isn't necessarily to, I don't think we want to build a network of stores such as all the big, like a Carrefour or Auchan, like any of these retailers. I think it's more about creating experiences and spaces where we can showcase the products that we're selling or that are being sold on our platform, because they're not really selling them, they're being sold by third parties, but showcase these products to show that they're high quality and that people can interact with them. Showcase our technology. So the example I was giving earlier of scanning your phone and having the product in hand is something that people really like. And then creating spaces that can really be at the corner between shopping and entertainment. And in the pop-up store that we had in Paris, there was a whole corner which was a live stream corner where influencers would come in and spend 5 minutes talking to their community, some very large communities, some smaller. But the idea is that it's to break the boundaries of the store, because if you have a store in Paris, it's great, you can talk. We had over 4,000 people come over a couple of days. It was nice, great foot traffic, even though it's obviously heavily regulated because of COVID. But we want to go beyond that, and going beyond that is everything that's happening with the influencers who are then publishing on their Instagram page, their YouTube channels, or so forth and so on. And then you're able to touch a much larger, much broader community outside of Paris and even like the world potentially. And that's kind of like what we want to do, like create these platforms or these stores that can, you know, help people have a different experience with our stores. So not necessarily specific stores, but creating experiences.
Excellent. Yeah, I think we'll all look forward to seeing them in action as they open up. Next question is from a journalist, and it's for Christina, and it's about the platforms. So the question is, which platforms did you develop for your strategic products? And regarding the COVID-19 situation, how do you have products delivered on time and from production to delivery? So it's kind of a practical question for you.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question. So I think that reply to this question is not really related to machines, although, but it's more related actually to partnering with other partners and to creating a very good network. So just to give you a very practical examples, on the production side, we have our family laboratories. So actually, we were lucky enough to never stop our production during first wave of COVID, and hopefully we won't need to stop it now. It was really critical actually on the delivery part, so the logistics, I would say. And in this case, we partnered with DHL, so our courier. And actually, I would say that the service was perfect, even though even in the very, let's say, peak COVID time. So we never had problems in terms of delivery time. Everything was delivered by the time that was projected. So, for example, 24 hours in our case. And but I really think that what is really important in this case is to partner and to create a very strong network, because this is something that I think there is no machine that can do for you.
Absolutely. So that's good. That's encouraging. Simply, we are going into the second wave right now, and since you have that experience behind you, you can probably be very well prepared. Next question is for Cynthia, and this goes back to what you were talking about at the way beginning, was this sensorial experience, which for your products is, you know, it's makeup, it's perfumes, it's things that people can feel and touch. So the question is, which ways have you found that could be useful towards filling the needs of the customers to feel and touch the product?
Thank you. I mean, that's a good question. Especially a good question because, you know, feeling and touching a product digitally is super difficult. So we've, you know, I was talking about the virtual try-ons, which, you know, kind of, you know, show you how you can look, you know, what could be the improvement. And that works. That works. So people like it, people use it. You can find them easily, you know, on any web search engine. What we have also seen developing and very much appreciated was the kind of beauty consultations, so the e-beauty consultations, you know, that we strengthened. And actually, you know, if I can then cycle back to one of the questions that was put to Christina and Sebastian, you know, it's really the creation of the experience that really matters at the digital age. And you know, shops will remain open in the future. We will still have shops, but shops will have to digitalize to also allow, we have seen that in some of our shops, even before the crisis, you know, where a customer enters, wants to see some makeup. He's, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, in tomorrow's world or even in today's world, you know, it's finished with testers. I mean, makeup is something, you know, you used to take and try a little bit on your skin. That's over, because this is not according to the security and sanitary protocols of any country. So we have to integrate, you know, also some technologies to help the customer, you know, really kind of test the product, but to the, you know, to the extent we can. Easier on makeup and hair coloration probably than on skincare, but skincare, then we have the EBAs, and it's this constant online offline interaction, for a better service of the consumer, which is really key, and which will have to be more developed in the future.
We've seen this. Lots of retailers are already introducing these QR codes. So we mentioned that as a really promising technology. Just on a personal level, I went shopping for some furniture, and the sofa bed that I was looking for had a QR code. I took that home, and I was able to go to a website and then turn around exactly with the image to see exactly what it looked like. So in addition to having the online experience, it was augmenting the real physical experience. So that's kind of it's a combination of those two. So that's kind of moves me into this question for all the panelists. Really good question from another journalist, and it's about AI. So the question is, do you use machine learning and AI in your online platforms? And if so, how and in what ways? So perhaps we can start with Christina.
So I'm an ex-Googler, for example, so I know very well actually this topic, and I would say that we didn't develop as a very small company anything with the artificial intelligence, but we rely on artificial intelligence built, for example, from Google, from Facebook. So let's say where we use most of this artificial intelligence was in advertisements, and we relied on this intelligence for example, choosing in a more automatic way our specific target to communicate with. And I think that this was really crucial for us as a new company. So it's really difficult to find the very specific target when you are speaking to digital in a context that is really different and you are new. And I think that in this, artificial intelligence was really crucial for us in helping us to improve the number of conversions, so basically of sales.
Really good. Sebastian, do you want to talk about a little bit how Alibaba?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think what we see that's very interesting is the fact that we're shifting from a moment where brands had to kind of guess where trends were going and guess what the consumer would want and do panels and tryouts, etc., to a moment where it's not necessarily artificial intelligence, but it's just big data, being able to do predictive analysis. And we've worked with brands, and L'Oreal is one of them, actually, with whom we did some amazing things in China, where we're able to predict where the market was going before the market even was there. And this was around men cosmetics. And the idea was like based on all the data that we had in terms of queries on our websites and buying patterns, etc., to define what the next wave was going to be, and then work with a brand to be able to take advantage of that next wave. So this is where things are going, is to really understand the mindset of the consumer before the consumers even ask for the products. So it's really going to shift things around, and I think that in partnering with brands, because we're not going to be the ones, we don't manufacture or sell any of our products. So it'll only work. It's only intelligence that we will give to brands so that then they can serve their consumers better. But clearly, there's a huge trend going on there, and it's been going on for a little while, and it gets better and better with time, because that's what that's the thing about artificial intelligence. It only gets better with more data.
Absolutely, yeah. And as the former Googlers know, there's a great value in having lots of data. So Cynthia, I just wanted to ask you what your thoughts are about this AI question. I'm sure you're
Thank you very much. I mean, it's very much in line with what Christina and Sebastian certainly has said. I mean, L'Oréal has had a very long-standing and successful partnership with Alibaba, and we are very happy about it. The future of beauty. Okay, that sounds a big word, but really is about personalized beauty. And this personalized beauty, we will only get it, through the use of artificial intelligence and the processing of data. So when we launch, through platforms, some tools for skin diagnosis, systems where, you take, I'm having my iPhone, you take your picture, it scans some pain points, and then it goes into the system, tells you which skin type you have, what could be the better product, etc., and puts you directly in touch with the platform. Or the distributor on the platform, that can provide you with a product. Or if you're going even one step further, like we have in China, putting you in touch with a system whereby you are, booking maybe a dermatologist consultation, etc. I mean, this is something we've launched with Alibaba in China about 2 years ago. This is really our future. It is. Every woman wants to have the perfect skin type, looking great, natural, etc. But that goes through a very strong personalization of the service and of the product accordingly. We even have, and we see that being developed more and more, through the skin diagnosis systems. You can also have your own tailor-made foundation, for instance. And tomorrow, hair color, etc., etc. So AI absolutely critical to our business for tomorrow, and we call that the beauty tech, actually. Yeah. I don't hear you.
Oh, what did you call it?
So we call it the beauty tech. You have fintech,
beauty tech.
Yeah.
Excellent. Just a quick follow-up question on that while I still have you, and it's what would your business look like without platforms and digital? And I'm sorry, that's a question for Christina.
Don't worry. Hopefully, this is a very hypothetical question. Of course, no. Of course, the platforms are really crucial and strategic for us, and we decided to preside mainly the digital platforms, and this is a strategic decision, of course. But we are an artisan laboratory of pastry and chocolate. So this is our business. Our mission is to reveal these products to potentially all the world. And what we are trying to do now is to create an open dialogue and a continuous communication with local stores. Of course, let's say, seeing how we did until now, so starting with the digital and then catching up with the traditional channels, these channels needs more time to be built because it's more related to real relationship. So real relationship needs time to be built. But definitely our business is to produce great quality chocolate and pastry. And platforms are just a great way to reveal to all the consumers and to create a touch points with them to tell our story. And this is really important for us. So our business is not being on platform. Our business is to produce chocolate and to make chocolate and pastry known to everybody as long as it's possible, of course.
Yeah, I imagine that the lessons that you've learned could be applied to all sorts of different products, different brands, different small manufacturers. I mean, you're using chocolate and pastry. Just to turn to Damir for a moment, and if you can I'd just like to ask your view on artificial intelligence. I mean, this is something that the European Commission is pushing very strongly. There's going to be an AI legislation early in 2021. I'm not sure if it's a communication directive or whatever, but some sort of legislative measure. I'm just wondering how retail might fit in with that overarching strategy on AI. If there's any kind of, let's say, overarching policy for AI and retail.
Well, in terms of policies, European Commission, when we talk about AI, is mostly focused on the public sector, or industrial part of it. We are following this cooperation between the the processing industry and the retailers. Their AI is being used as the other panelists already explained, to predict the customers' expectations. That would basically optimize their resources, and of course for retail is an economy of scale, and the market size and how well you target your consumers is crucial, and their AI can help. For us in retail, AI is not high on the agenda, because it is of course limited to only very big players. Small retailers, they have hard time getting access to data, and the big retailers, they have this data, but then to process it and to make use of it, they need the help of AI specialists, and there is where processing the big brands cooperation is crucial, and we're looking at this very it's very satisfactory to us to see this relationship developing going further.
Excellent. Another question for whoever wants to jump in, but it's kind of a broad question. And how have your customers changed due to COVID? This is part of the whole evolution of retail theme we have today. And how do you actually analyze your customers? I think some of the panelists already discussed ways of going onto social media, and you can sense a little bit what direction things are going. But how do you use your online presence to help with the analysis of your customers? And let's start out with Cynthia.
Yeah, our consumers have really gone digital, massively, and of course, it's not to follow them, but to analyze the consumer habits. Of course, the more they go digital, and in Europe we have the GDPR, and it's a very good basis for data governance and ensuring privacy is respected, etc. But the more they go online, of course, the more data we have, especially as they browse on our websites directly on our we don't have any platform, so it's really our websites or our social tools. So the way we evaluate the needs is thanks to the data that we have and that we collect after they we get their consent. Kind of a very basic answer, but I think that is really it. And again, the European framework for us is very good. It's a very solid basis. We think that consumers trust the online ecosystem in general, and GDPR is a strong basis, and a foundational piece in that regard.
Excellent. Yeah. I realize that GDPR is you do need to get consent from your customers, and nowadays you go on practically every single website, they're collecting data through consent. You actually click on the cookies allowing the consent to customize more, target your audience. We could talk more about that, because I think some members of the European Parliament would like to reduce targeted advertising or even phase it out, which I think for a lot of websites would be very problematic. Another question for you, Cynthia, and it's building on the idea about customers and how you relate with them. So the question is, what do you think about in the near future of the way to meet customers directly in the store? For instance, if we can't go to stores, let's say in the near future there could be another lockdown, or so how do you expect that's going to change in the near future?
What we think will happen, but again, the name of the game here will be to be as agile as possible to adapt to the consumer journey. Meeting customers in stores, we hardly have any stores. What we have are beauty advisors and hairdressers, right? Or professional people who really are trained, and these are our people. So those people, of course, it is in the interest of everybody to keep some physical retail, and we will be helping them, maintain some activity as long as it's permitted, of course, in the countries where they are. It's also, digitalizing them to be able to reorient them towards what we call the e-beauty consultations. Because if you cannot go as a customer to a store, but you really want a product, then you go online, and online you have to have the same level of service. So the way they, how it changes. I mean, as I said, we've seen such an increase in e-commerce and the volume of sales through e-commerce. So we are adapting, and we will be adapting by also, rechanneling some of our people to the digital tools and the digital activity. But we will be there again. If tomorrow they go massively to stores, we will be there to provide their needs. But
at some point, we can only hope. Things will change. May take another year or so. I don't know how. We're still hoping for a vaccine. This is another question for you, Cynthia. Sorry to bombard you with questions, but it's a question about consumer behavior. How diverse is it? So, for instance, do you see a difference in consumer behavior in countries in the South, for example, in Greece or other Southern European countries?
Consumer habits are very different. There are different in terms of shopping. There are different in terms of taste, and I'm sure Christina can elaborate on that. Beauty is really a topic that is deeply nationally, locally, or even regionally rooted, with very different, consumption patterns, desires, and also heritage, because there is a cultural aspect in the beauty sector. So of course, between Sweden and Greece or France and Hungary, things are quite different. If it comes to, it also pertains to the digitalization of those people. I mean, the Greek consumer is, because the question is mostly focused on Greece. When you look at the landscape of Greece with all the islands, etc., it's pretty different from, let's say France or Germany. But the Greek consumer has his habits, is quite digitalized actually, with and used to to a certain beauty routine that is proper to the Greek heritage. So I'm kind of not really answering, but I mean, to try to answer, it is so diverse. It's really through the data and through our privileged relationship, which local consumers, because beauty is local and the consumer is local, the consumption patterns wherever are local, that we do adjust accordingly. And that is also why our group is, operates with a very strong national or local presence and has some local marketing.
Christina, I have some ideas about this, because at the beginning you spoke a lot about the importance of international customers. So maybe do certain Europeans or other people in the world, they have certain kinds of chocolate tastes or pastry tastes versus other people?
Now, of course, there are many differences also in taste in terms of food. Maybe the slightly difference is that our strategy is not to, let's say, adapt our product to maybe the taste, but of course to respond to those needs, maybe serving more a product than another. And this is because actually our strategy is to propose the authentic Piedmont recipes. So it wouldn't make any sense to, let's say, create a peanut butter praline to maybe to respond to a specific need, because this wouldn't be, let's say, coherent with our strategy. But what I can say is definitely that, for example, our room praline is maybe not really, let's say, bought by an English consumer. It's maybe preferred by French, for example, or hazelnut pralines are preferred by Nordics countries. So it really depends. Maybe the difference is that we are not changing our recipes for the local tastes, but we analyze, and of course we try to serve at best the preferences of our consumers.
Okay. Very good. I mean, it's true that Northern Europeans have different ideas about different spices, what they might like, versus Southern Europeans. So I think it's an interesting point. I just want to bring in Sébastien, if there's any thoughts about that, like how to adapt to different consumers around the world. Maybe when you think about dealing with the Chinese consumer and what they might like.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that's clearly the heart of what we do in terms of helping European companies go to China, is to make them understand that some tastes and it's everything, right? It's around food for sure, even though that is something that's changing, but also like fashion for sure, and cosmetics as well. I mean, there's a lot of products that just don't work in China. But what's I think more interesting when you look at that market is how quickly it's evolving, because that's the opportunity there, right? Because you cannot just have, and I think that's the difficulty also, and the challenge, and where I think we try to help as much as possible. It's because I think we, in our world, we're used to having product cycles that are fairly long, and we'll do like a 3-year plan, and a 3-year plan in China doesn't make any sense. Like the plans have to be like 3 months plans, if that, and so that requires a level of agility from brands that's and I think that COVID is only going to accelerate that, and I think that COVID in a lot of ways has forced brands, regardless of their size, to react very quickly, and I think it's going to also change a lot of the DNA or the way that those brands work. But yeah, the idea is really about understanding the evolution and then being able, as I was talking about when I was talking about the AI piece, down the line to spearhead and be ahead of that curve and be able to make the change or see the opportunity before it's even there. Because once it's there, it might even be in some ways too fast, or too late. Sorry, not too fast, too late, because there might be others that have taken the space of that opportunity. So I think like the level of agility is really key in terms of what the brands can do.
Okay, Damir, I think you want to jump in on this question.
Yes, I just wanted to say what we saw as a trend that we did not expect that it would go so far. So this awareness by younger generations of the impact of the environment and how eco-design of products, and you heard about these initiatives like Shop Locally, local online platforms with local solutions, deliveries, how communities reached out and delivered to elderly and sick in certain countries, how shop opening hours were exclusively meant for in some countries for elderly people. Now, this cohesion and the crisis basically make us think more about, is everyone on board? Are all people covered with their basic desires? And on the more evolutionary aspect, in Sweden, of course, the biggest retailer is ICA, and they have an app where you can track your carbon footprint as per product you are buying. So this is also very, very, very popular, and I think the younger generations are very, very aware of this environmental impact of retail and what they consume. So I hope this is going to go further than that.
So we have a little bit, about 5 minutes left, and I would like to kind of wrap up on this environmental theme, because I think it's very important if we look at the priorities of the Commission, it's digital and the environment, greening. So I was just, if you could follow up, Damir, about some building up the urban policies about possibly the initiatives on local green transport. You mentioned this at some point, But I was just wondering if you have any specific business stories about that, where retailers are using, let's say, electric vehicles or bicycle couriers or that kind of thing.
Well, we don't have really about the electrical bicycles, but we know, for example, IKEA is big in making transport more green. I think you may have heard in Paris they're using the river Seine now for deliveries. That's very innovative, and I like that. Also, there was a big trend of click and collect, which is basically also allowing people not only to click but to SMS and collect, WhatsApp and collect, because of course not all of us are very adapt to the websites and finding this information. So that much I can say regarding this small initiatives. We have had 8 workshops where we connect the local governments to the small retailers, where they developed the schemes where you can find the information which shops are opened and how can you have your goods delivered. Now there are many initiatives of the European Commission that will address this green in retail, and there are initiatives like extended producers' responsibility. So there are also initiatives regarding the batteries disposal. So retail will play a significant part in this. But on the green side, what I also liked is this education of consumers part on behalf of retailers. So some retailers, they organize cooking classes inside their shops, and they teach young people what is healthy and how do you prepare this food. And I think this is a bit of a trend everywhere, but I really like this, that the retailers found themselves to be also in that business, and they can help this greening initiative work better. So apart from this switching to natural gases and the energy and the packaging, less plastic, there are many initiatives where retailers can help the greening of the business.
Does anyone else want to jump in on greening of retail and how you're integrating environmental policies?
So I'll be happy to just really quickly, but so I think China is obviously the biggest polluter in the world right now. But I think there's 2 things going back to consumers earlier. I think in the way that we've seen them changed over COVID. I think we're seeing, especially in the young generation, much more mindfulness in the way that they consume, and this idea of wanting to have products that last longer and that are better quality and maybe buy less but of better quality. We launched a secondhand platform because they asked for it, and it wasn't the brands asking for it, it was the consumers. And then as far as we're concerned, where we definitely understand how the footprint that we have, and be it in our warehouses, be it through our cloud platforms, but also by planting millions of trees. We have an initiative called End Forest. For every transaction that's being done with End Financial, we will plant a tree, and there's millions of trees that have been planted in China. And also, since we are soon in November, we're coming up on 11/11, which is the biggest shopping day in China, which is obviously an Alibaba event. And last year we put that in place. We put recycling bins all across the big cities, because we know people buy a lot of products, they get a lot of cardboard, and we want to make sure that cardboard gets recycled. And this wasn't put together by the government, it's actually put together by our distribution arm, which is called Sanyao, to make sure that all these products, yes, there's going to be a lot of shopping done, but then there'll be a lot of recycling done as well. So we feel that we have a responsibility, and we're trying to own up to it.
Okay, quickly, Christina, Cynthia, do you want to jump in and have some final words about green initiatives?
In our case, for example, our packaging is mainly made of paper, so we removed all the plastic that we could. And of course, in the food environment, it's not really easy, as you know, because there is a food contact. So there are many laws that are regulating this part, of course. But we decided from scratch to use paper for our packaging, and this is the main things that we did, basically on the green part.
And Cynthia, final word?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, on sustainability, it's like digital. It's been one of the three pillars of L'Oréal strategy, and the third one being innovation. So it's an agenda we started in 2013. It's a great journey, very transformational because it touches on everything. So of course we had a part on greening on our plants, because we have many plants throughout the world, with a goal to reaching carbon neutrality by 2025. There was also a lot of things done on the front of eco-design of our products. We are even launching now as pilot in France, kind of an information tool to the consumer about the environmental and social impact of the product that they buy, so that they can, we can do our share, but at the end of the day, the consumer also has to, he's the one making the choice, or he or she actually. We have things, around addressing biodiversity loss. So it's a whole agenda, very big, to tackle especially our scope 1 and what we call scope 1, scope 2 emissions, which scope 1 we have direct control of, scope 2 a little bit less, but we are working on it. We are engaging with the consumer on making him also an instrument of the uptake of greener products, or more sustainable products, and more sustainable consumption patterns.
I think we went through a lot in that short time, and it looks like we could even speak a little bit longer, but unfortunately we have to wrap things up. And I just remain to say a big thank you for all 4 panelists for taking the time today. I think it's been a really fruitful discussion. And I also want to thank the audience for sending in lots of great questions. You've been really great. Very good to see so many people engaged. So for me, Matthew Newman, I'd like to thank you again, and I wish you a very pleasant rest of the day.
Thank you very much.